Story 1 of 5. Australia's 2026 federal budget tax reforms on negative gearing, CGT, and housing. Australia's 2026 federal budget tax reforms on negative gearing, CGT, and housing. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Treasurer Jim Chalmers will deliver the 2026 federal budget on May 12, 2026, with changes to negative gearing, capital gains tax, CGT, and trusts as key tax reforms. The government plans to grandfather existing property investors, meaning current negative gearing and CGT rules will not apply to properties already owned, but new investments will face changes. Negative gearing changes are expected to limit the policy to newly built properties, aiming to boost housing supply. The capital gains tax discount is likely to be reduced from 50% to an inflation-adjusted rate, or a lower flat rate, going 25 to 35%, reverting to a pre-1999 model. The budget will include $64 billion in savings and reprioritizations, with a focus on housing supply, productivity reforms, and fuel security due to the Iran war. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian and ABC report that the CGT discount will likely be reduced to an inflation-adjusted rate, or a flat rate of 25 to 35%. But News Kamau and SMH suggest the government may consider a flat rate of 25 to 35% without confirming the inflation-adjusted model. The Guardian states that the budget will not include big, near-term cash splashes, while News Kamau and SMH report expectations of a one-off tax cut of $200, $300 for wage earners, though Chalmers has not confirmed the timing. The Age and SMH report that the government will grandfather existing property investors, but News Kamau and ABC suggest that the grandfathering may be partial for CGT changes, with full grandfathering for negative gearing. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, news.com.au, Sydney Morning Herald and The Age.
Story 2 of 5. Discovery of decomposed body, believed to be triple murderer Julian Ingram in New South Wales Central West. Discovery of decomposed body, believed to be triple murderer Julian Ingram in New South Wales Central West. Here's what every outlet agrees on. A decomposed body, a white Ford Ranger utility with council signage, and a firearm were found on Monday, May 8, 2026, at Round Hill Nature Reserve, about 50 km northwest of Lake Cargalago, New South Wales. The body is believed to be Julian Ingram, 37, who allegedly killed his pregnant ex-partner Sophie Quinn, 25, her friend John Harris, 32, and her aunt Nerita Quinn, 50, on January 22, 2026, in Lake Cargalago. Caleb McQueen, 19 at the time, was the sole survivor of the shootings, having been seriously injured. Police confirmed the ute found at the scene was the same vehicle Ingram was seen driving from Lake Cargalago on January 22, 2026, and his driver's license was found inside. The body is yet to be formally identified, but police are confident it is Ingram based on clothing and identification at the scene. But not all outlets told the same story. The ABC and SMH state the body was found about 50 kilometres northwest of Lake Cargalago, while the SMH also mentions it was about 100 kilometres northwest, creating a discrepancy in distance. The Guardian states the body was found next to a ute, while the SMH specifies it was a Ford Ranger ute with council signage, which is not contradicted but adds specificity. The SMH claims the body was found on Monday afternoon, while the ABC and Guardian do not specify the exact time of discovery beyond Monday. This story was covered by ABC News, The Guardian, SBS News, and Sydney Morning Herald.
Story 3 of 5. UK PM Keir Starmer faces resignation calls after poor election results. UK PM Keir Starmer faces resignation calls after poor election results. Here's what every outlet agrees on. At least 50 Labor MPs publicly called for Keir Starmer to resign or set a timetable for his exit after local elections. More than 60 Labour MPs, out of 403, asked Starmer to step down after local and regional elections. 4 government aides resigned, including Joe Morris, Parliamentary Private Secretary to Health Secretary Wes Streeting, and Tom Rutland, aide to Environment Secretary Emma Reynolds. Starmer acknowledged in a speech on May 11, 2026, that, "I know I have my doubters, and I know I need to prove them wrong, and I will." Labour lost control of the devolved Welsh Parliament for the first time since 1999 and failed to gain ground against the SNP in Scotland. But not all outlets told the same story. ABC reports at least 50 MPs called for Starmer to resign, while Newscom.au reports more than 60 MPs asked him to step down. ABC states 4 ministerial aides resigned, while Newscom.au lists 4 specific aides: Joe Morris, Tom Rutland, Melanie Ward, Noshabar Khan, but does not explicitly say ministerial for all. ABC says at least 403 Labour MPs in total, while Newscom.au says more than 60 called for resignation. No direct contradiction, but ABC's live blog mentions more than 70 calling for resignation, which is higher than Newscom.au's 60. This story was covered by ABC News and news.com.au.
Story 4 of 5. AFL addresses decline in Indigenous players with new initiatives and funding. AFL addresses decline in Indigenous players with new initiatives and funding. Here's what every outlet agrees on. The number of Indigenous AFL players dropped from 87 in 2020 to 62 in 2026. The AFL launched a First Nations Impact Fund with approximately $300,000 allocated annually to support Indigenous representation. 9 Indigenous players were drafted in the 2025 AFL season, while 11 were delisted, contributing to the decline in numbers. AFL CEO Andrew Dillon stated that the league aims to increase Indigenous player numbers to 89 by 2030 as part of its 5-year strategy. The AFL is considering giving clubs an extra list spot specifically for First Nations players, but not all outlets told the same story. The ABC states the Sir Doug Nicholls round gets underway on Thursday with Brisbane hosting Geelong at the Gabba, while The Guardian does not specify the exact start date or first game location, beyond the round's timing. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian.
Story 5 of 5. Philippine VP Sara Duterte faces impeachment trial for alleged corruption and threats. Philippine VP Sara Duterte faces impeachment trial for alleged corruption and threats. Here's what every outlet agrees on. Sara Duterte was impeached by the House of Representatives, with 255 of 318 lawmakers voting in favour, surpassing the 1/3 threshold required. The impeachment allegations include misuse of public funds, amassing unexplained wealth, and threats against President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos, and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Sara Duterte denied all allegations and stated her defence team is prepared to defend her before the Senate, emphasising the burden of proof lies with the accusers. If convicted in the Senate trial, Sara Duterte would be removed from office and potentially disqualified from holding public office for life. Sara Duterte is the daughter of former President Rodrigo Duterte, who faces crimes against humanity charges at the International Criminal Court for his war on drugs, 2016 to 2022. But not all outlets told the same story. The Guardian states Sara Duterte's threats were made during an online press conference, while ABC does not mention the specific context of the threats beyond the allegations. This story was covered by ABC News and The Guardian.